What's up guys, welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks, and with your help we've done it. We've reached 10,000 subscribers. Now, I've really thought about what I wanted to do to thank you guys for that, and I've come up with showing you guys and sharing my most powerful deck tech with you. Now, you might be asking, hey man, why you been holding out on us? I'm not holding out, it's just the first video I've ever done, and honestly, it's trash. I've gotten a lot better since then, so here's an updated list of my Yidris Maelstrom Wielder deck tech. And honestly guys, this one's fun, but it's not for your casual sit down and play around in Magic. This one's powerful and honestly can end up doing 40 damage to every opponent all at once on one turn. So let's get into what this deck is. Guys, it's a wheel deck. I love wheels and Yidris just makes them more consistent. We're going to be able to cast spells that cascade into more spells that will get us more wheels, that will get us more cards that deal damage whenever we wheel, and honestly, it's a cascading effect that ends with everybody dying. So, if that sounds like a deck tech you're into, let's get into it. Let's start off by talking about the wheels we're going to run in this deck. We have Windfall, Wheel of Fate. Notably guys, Wheel of Fate is a special one because since it has Suspend, if we cascade into it, its CMC will be 0, so we will cast it for free and we don't have to worry about that Suspend slowing us down. Reforge the Soul, super solid because of that miracle cost. Dark Deal, this one's not ideal because you'll draw less cards than you discard, but it's still super solid in the deck. Jace's Archivist is going to make it to where we can wheel effectively every turn. Dragon Mage can do exactly the same thing on a giant body, so hey, why not, right? Lastly, the best one in the deck is Whispering Madness. This one can win us the game on the spot, and I'll explain why later. All you'll need to know for now is you can cast it and then imprint it onto our commander, attack, and that will cast it a second time, and it will do that every turn consistently as long as we are dealing commander damage with our commander, which is the whole goal of this deck, because we want to give all our spells cascade, right? Lastly guys, it's not really a wheel effect since it doesn't cause you to discard your hand, but Echo of Eons can be super solid in the deck because we're only ever casting it for that flashback cost and only when we're in a pinch and we run out of gas. Now let's talk about why we want our opponents discarding and drawing a lot of cards. With this next category, draw yourself to death. We have Cataract Parasite that's going to deal 1 damage to our opponent whenever they draw a card. Notably, we have to control a red permanent, but our commander's red, so that solves that problem right out of the gate. Raider's Wake, Fell Spectre, Migrim, and Liliana's Caress are all going to do 2 damage to our opponents whenever they're discarding a card. Lastly guys, we do run Sheoldred the Apocalypse because the life gain is too attractive and honestly the damage is there as well. 9 times out of 10, this is how we win the game. We get 1 or 2 of these payoffs on the battlefield, and then all we'll need to do is wheel twice and our opponents are dead. Think about that. 4 damage every time you discard a card. You discard 7 cards. That's a total of 28 damage they're taking. Additionally, if we don't have 2 of these payoffs on the battlefield, we'll need to wheel 3 times, but this is where cards like Whispering Madness come into play. This is why this is one of the best cards in the deck, right? You cast it, you're gonna go ahead and discard, and then you attack with your commander, deal combat damage, people are gonna discard and draw again. So that's a total of 2 times per 1 card, and the odds that you draw into another wheel or something that can get another wheel into your hand is honestly pretty high. Now, additionally guys, let's not forget that our commander is cascading like crazy while we are murdering our opponents. The value is crazy. I mean, just think of Cascade like this. Every time you cast a spell, go ahead and draw a card with lesser CMC, then play it for free. That's essentially what Cascade is, and honestly, when you say it like that, it's not hard to see why the value of this deck is insane. Now, there are ways to value out of wheels in the deck other than just killing our opponents right out. Kaidel, Chosen of Crewfix, can tap for a ton of mana, and I do mean a ton. 2 wheels and this girl's tapping for 14. It's honestly insane. Waste Not can net you mana, a board state, and card draw. Again, this card is one of the best cards in the deck because we're going to get that for each of our opponents, and it gets pretty crazy pretty fast. Archfiend of Ifnir is absolutely insane in the deck. I've never lost a game when this guy sticked to the battlefield and I was able to wheel. The opponents can't keep a board state and we're doing exactly what we want to do with our deck. Tegrid, God of Fright. This one's especially messed up, right? Now they're discarding their hand, and when they do, we just get all of their permanent cards. Again, this is another card that I've never resolved and not won the game immediately afterwards. Evacuation and Cyclonic Rift. Now, these cards are not very nice in the deck because of how we're going to use them. We're going to leave mana open, let everybody pass their turn, and on our last opponent's end step before our turn, we're going to bounce all of their creatures, and with Cyclonic Rift, all of their permanents back to their hand. Now, That's what the cards do. Why did I just tell you that? Because this is how we're going to use it. We're going to make sure we have one of those payoffs on the battlefield, whether it be Liliana's Caress or something like that, and then we're going to wheel all of their creatures, all of their permanents away, and they're going to take a ton of damage for that, and honestly, we're probably going to kill a couple opponents off of that. I know that's a little effed up, but I told you at the start of the video, this is not a very nice deck. Lastly, we have Jin Kataxis, guys. This is going to be some solid card advantage, and then when we flip this guy over, we're going to get more card draw. We're going to get that bounce effect again, and then, you know, we're just going to get Omniscience for a turn, which is extremely broken with Yidris. Assuming we get him back onto the battlefield after he gets bounced to our hand, we can attack with Yidris with an open board, and then, you know, all of our free spells have Cascade for a turn. That's gonna be insane. I honestly don't know a scenario where we just don't win the game outright at that point, because of the nature of this deck and all the wheels and card draw we run in it. Now guys, I like free spells as much as the next guy, so when this Sword of Once and Future, got spoiled, I had to jump on it because it's going to be amazing in this deck. Why? Because we run a lot of suspend cards, and suspend cards have a really cool interaction with this sword where you can just cast suspend cards for free from your graveyard just by attacking with Yidris, which is what we already want to do. So let's get into these suspend cards. Profane Tutor. This is literally just a tutor for free that we can cast from our graveyard or whenever we cascade into it. Inevitable Betrayal is not an okay card to play, guys. This is just going to search up the best creature in our opponent's deck and throw it onto our side because why not? Wheel of Fate, I've already talked about this, but I still wanted to include it here. And then we have the 2 CMC cards we can hit with the sword. I just wanted to include them in this category just so you guys know what we're going to be able to hit. Assassin's Trophy, Super Solid Removal, Vampiric Tutor, Super Solid Tutor, Mystical Tutor, again, Super Solid Tutor for getting those wheel cards that we need, Nature's Lore, 3 visits, super solid mana fixing while being ramp that we can cast from our graveyard with this sword. Brainstorm loads the top of our library, that way we know exactly what we're going to cascade into, and we do have Cyclonic Rift, but honestly guys, we really want to cast that for its overloaded cost, and the bounce is just an added effect, right? There is one infinite combo in the deck, but it's only in the deck because all of the pieces work seamlessly in the deck if you never draw, you know, all 3 pieces. Sensei's Divining Top is going to be amazing for loading the top of our library with whatever we need. Aetherflux Reservoir, I've gotten this to kill all 3 of my opponents without ever going infinite just because of the sheer amount of cards that we cast in this deck. And Bolus's Citadel, an amazing card for getting the cards that we don't want to cascade into off of the top of our library, while also allowing us to know what's on the top of our library, to know what we need to cast to cascade into that, right? If I see a wheel on the top of my library and it's a 3 mana cost wheel, I know that I can cast a 5 mana cost wheel and wheel twice in that turn and possibly kill everybody. This is definitely one of those decks that gets better the more you play with it and the more you learn how to manipulate it. I'll really quickly explain the infinite combo, that way you guys know it. This one isn't really reinventing the wheel or anything, I just really love these pieces and they fit perfectly in the deck. Aetherflux Reservoir and Bolus's Citadel pair perfectly with each other because you're using life to pay for the cards, and then, you know, you're gaining life judging on the amount of cards you cast. So eventually you're just gaining life no matter how much CMC the cards on the top of your library are. The only problem is once you run into a land, you're kind of screwed. Well, Sensei's Divining Top can solve that issue because you'll draw the land, put the top on top, cast the top with Bolus's Citadel, gaining life from Aetherflux Reservoir, and then you can gain infinite life casting the top from your library, basically drawing your deck, and you'll be able to Death Star everybody down before, you know, decking out becomes an issue. Moving on, let's talk about the core of the deck. We have Solundi Visions. Not only can this be a land early game, but it can help us search for those instant and sorcery cards that we need late game. Bring to Light, super flexible card on the deck. Casting this for 4 will give us access to a lot of our wheels, it'll give us access to a lot of our creatures, and it'll give us access to basically all of our key pieces, right? Fabricate, super solid for grabbing any of the swords. We do run Sword of Feast and Famine because it's basically a pseudo extra turn and it's socially acceptable discard, so you definitely run it in this deck. We do gain value off of discarding cards, and Sword of Feast and Famine fits the theme of discard while untapping all of our lands. It's super solid in the deck. Passionate Archaeologist. This one's amazing because now people are taking damage from all the spells we are casting from exile, which again can be a lot. Some of these spells aren't cheap, and it's honestly super solid to see someone take 8 damage from you just casting spells. Swiftfoot Boots and Lightning Greaves, we need to protect our commander because, guys, people are going to be shooting for this guy like, you know, he's a lightning rod. They don't want him to connect. They don't want him to stick around because honestly, once you hit with this guy, it's 50-50 if you're going to run away with the game after that. Sylvan Library, this card's amazing because we can stack our library with what we want to cascade into, right? Draw 3 cards. We can go ahead and out of those 3 cards, put something back on top. And then, you know, we have 100% knowledge of what's on top of our library. Notably, you do want to be paying life, you know, to get through your library. This isn't just for stacking your library, but it is an added benefit while being card advantage. Rishkar's Expertise. This card has a really cool interaction with our commander, right? Because you get to draw a lot of cards, and then you're going to get to cast a spell for free. Now, you'll get the Cascade trigger off of the Rishkar's Expertise and off of that 5 or less CMC card that you're casting, right? Because you are casting that from your hand, so it will also have Cascade. 2 Cascade triggers for 1 card, you've got to love it. Jeska's Will. This one's super solid because honestly, it's going to add a lot of mana to your mana pool, and then you're going to get some card advantage along with it, so it fits perfectly in the deck. Let's move on to the ramp in this deck. We have Burgeoning. Burgeoning is super good in this deck because everybody's always going to have a full hand because of the amount we are wheeling. So the odds that you're going to get a trigger off of this are going to be way higher than if you're playing just a normal green deck. Urabrask. I like this guy because 1, he's going to add some mana whenever we're cascading to Oblivion, and whenever we flip over, it's exactly what we want. It's a soft board wipe. It's going to get rid of those token strategies, right? It's going to give us some treasure tokens, and then lastly, it'll give us access to our graveyard. That way we can cast our will spells from our graveyard, and he will flip over, so we'll be able to utilize that mana while we're casting a ton of stuff from our graveyard. Notably, stuff from the graveyard doesn't have Cascade, but at that point, we're probably trying to end the game anyway. Prosper Tomebound. This guy's an insane engine in the deck because every card we cast using Cascade is casted from exile. So we're going to go ahead and get that treasure token. Additionally, he does give us a little bit of card advantage, so he's super solid in the deck. We run Soul Ring, and then get ready for it, guys. We run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 signets in this deck. Now, you might be asking yourself, have you lost your mind? Why are you running 7 signets in this deck? And guys, it makes a lot of sense. We're using it because of our Cascade ability with our commander. If you look at all of our 1 CMC spells and our 0 CMC spells, they're absolutely broken. We have all of our tutors at 1 CMC. Burgeoning is a 1 CMC card. Profane Tutor, Inevitable Betrayal, Wheel of Fate, all 0 CMC cards. So the reason, in short, we're running all these 2 mana rocks is because of the Cascade ability and not so much because of the ramp. The ramp's just an added benefit on top of us getting that broken Cascade ability into exactly what we want. Moving on to removal, we have Oko, Thief of Crowns. This is super solid. We're just going to turn everybody's creatures into, you know, those little elks. Maelstrom Pulse. I really like this for token strategies because we can target them as long as they don't have a sack outlet, right? And we can take out their entire board state. Notably, it can just target any non-land permanent if we don't need to take out an entire board state with this. Baral's Expertise. This does the same exact thing as Rishkar's Expertise, except for we're bouncing stuff back to our opponent's hands. Notably, 3 target artifacts or creatures. This can be super big for making sure Yidris hits, and also as an added benefit, we get a free spell off of it, right? Siren Storm Tamer and Glenalindra Archmage. Now, these 2's job is just to sit on the battlefield and make sure our opponents don't touch our board, because all we need to do is make sure our game plan's going, and we don't care what our opponents are doing. We're going to try to win faster than them anyway. I've noticed with playing these guys, people just point removal in a different direction just so they don't have their spell countered. Even though you're the target and you are who they should be gunning for, they hit someone else just because they don't want to see their spell fizzle. Mana Drain. This is a deck that can utilize that additional mana we get from countering a spell. I countered an Azuri's Predation once with this, and man, that feels amazing. And then you get a ton of mana on your upkeep to cascade to Oblivion and end everybody at once. Curtain's Call. Something to note with decks like this, even if their CMC is reduced, we are still going to cascade for 6. So even though 9 times out of 10 we're casting this for like 3 mana, we're going to still be cascading for 6. Insane. If you thought that Curtain's Call synergy was insane, well, Blasphemous Act, we're gonna spend 1 mana to cascade for 9. How about that? Notably, it will, grab the first spell off the top, but still, that's gonna be super solid, and we're gonna guarantee whatever spell we have on top. Notably, I've used it to cascade into Ugin, the Spirit Dragon. This guy's in here mostly because I love him. This card is super old in my deck, and honestly, I don't have the heart to cut him, but he does put in work. Our artifacts aren't going to be touched, which is going to be super solid because that's the good portion of our ramp. He can get rid of those token strategies really easily because you can pay 0 using X and then just wipe all the 0 CMC spells, so no tokens are going to stay alive. The only thing he's weak to is obviously the artifact decks, but hey, there's more and more colored artifacts nowadays, so he's not as, useless in that department as he used to be. And then, his +2 is still useful, right? There's a lot of 3 toughness creatures that really need to be removed, and this guy can do that as well. So again, super solid in the deck. I'm happy with the include, but honestly, it's kind of guilty. That's going to do it for the deck tech, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This deck has personally become the boogeyman of my playgroup. They don't really want to play with it anymore, so it just kind of sits on a shelf, but I still don't have the heart to, take it apart. I pull it off the shelf now and then, but it's still as consistent as it's ever been, and these upgrades probably only make it better. So as always, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors. I'll see you in the next one.